she has more confidence and she goes for her shots without any doubt, I would say.
This was definitely one of the bigger Filipino turnouts. New York was huge.
3 weeks before the Linz Open draw went public, Alex Eala sat across from Andy Roddick and issued a public demand. She wants Sabalenka across the net, on record, with zero diplomatic cushioning. That conversation happened in March 2026. Eala then absorbed a 6-0, 6-2 dismantling from Karolina Muchova in Miami, dropped 270 ranking points, and entered Austria unseeded outside the top 40. On the surface, she has openly called her weakest. None of that stopped what happened next. The Linz Open booking servers shut down, overwhelmed by Filipino fans treating a WTA 500 clay event like a Taylor Swift album drop. Complete infrastructure failure. This is the same fan base that collapsed the Philippine Women's Open ticketing before Eala had even confirmed attendance. Sabalenka is reportedly speechless. She won this tournament in 2020. At the 2026 Australian Open, her press conference drew 9,000 YouTube views as the defending champion and world number 1. Eala's drew 196,000. Steve Johnson stated outright that Eala had overtaken both Sabalenka and Goff as the sport's biggest draw. Nobody at the table disagreed. Subscribe now because this breakdown goes further than any headline has.
I would have been able to play a big player like Madison or like Ostapenko, but I couldn't because I lost the round before.
Star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells.
What Austria is about to witness has been building since Miami 2025, March 2025. Alex Eala walked into the Miami Open as a wild card entry ranked 140th in the world. Nobody on the WTA circuit had prepared for what she was about to do inside that draw. She dispatched Iga Swiatek, Madison Keys, and Jelena Ostapenko, 3 former Grand Slam champions, all in straight sets. She reached the semifinals of a Masters 1000 event as a player ranked outside the top 100. That specific result does not happen in professional tennis. It happened anyway. The run ended against Jessica Pegula in the semifinals, 1 win away from a final against Sabalenka. Her coach told her exactly where she stood before that Pegula match, in the semifinals of a Masters 1000s 's event in Miami, playing for a spot against the world number 1. Eala's response was straightforward. She wanted to be there, she almost made it.
I'm really happy to advance to the next round. Obviously, it's not in the way I wanted it to end.
That unfinished business is the foundation of everything in 2026 that has been built on. Pegula, who is no stranger to big match environments, reflected on that Miami 2025 semi-final months later. She said the crowd was entirely against her from the opening point. She described standing on the court, wondering where all those people had come from. For context, Pegula is American, Miami is her home event, and she still felt like a visitor inside her own tournament. That kind of crowd shift doesn't happen without a specific player generating it. Eala was the specific player.
19-year-old lefty Alex Eala from the Philippines could be the next big thing in pro tennis.
This is the goal
My goal is to be able to integrate myself into the WTA circuit more and to be able to handle myself better on the court.
Bolted into the spotlight last month after making the semifinals at one of the biggest pro tennis tournaments in the world.
Fast forward to March 2026, Andy Roddick's podcast. Eala is asked to name her dream opponent on the current tour. She doesn't reach for a diplomatic non-answer. She names Sabalenka without hesitation. The world number 1, the player she nearly reached the final against in 2025, she says out loud, on record, that she wants that match, and that she intends to find her way there. That is the demand the title references, not a social media post, not an offhand comment in a mixed zone after a match. A deliberate, composed statement made on one of the most listened to tennis podcasts in the sport. Eala is 20 years old, making that kind of declaration about the most dominant player in women's tennis. Their head-to-head stands at 0 matches. They have never faced each other competitively, not once across any level of the tour. For the demand to carry weight, Eala first has to find a way through a draw that will not make anything easy, especially not on clay, especially not as an unseeded player ranked outside the top 40. Clay is where Eala's resume gets uncomfortable to look at. In 2025, she went 2-4 across 4 clay tournaments. She lost in the first round of the Italian Open. She lost in the first round of the French Open. She reached the second round in Madrid and the round of 16 at the Erupts Open, which was her best clay result of the season. That is not the profile of a player who typically generates noise at a WTA 500 clay event.
20-year-old Filipino tennis star Alex Eala has sent Melbourne Park crowds into an absolute frenzy.
It's hard to imagine that now because we're so far removed from it that it's almost hard to decide I want to be number one. Little did I know that I would,
The 2026 Linz Open has also changed its surface for the first time in the tournament's history. It was previously an indoor hardcourt event. This year, it has converted to indoor clay. That means the entire field is adjusting. But Eala is adjusting from a starting point of genuine unfamiliarity with the surface at this level, while simultaneously entering as one of the most watched players in the draw. She acknowledged the challenge directly after her Miami exit. Clay is the surface she has the most room to improve on. She said it without any spin. She has time before April 6th to prepare, and she intends to use it. But she also isn't arriving in Austria with the kind of clay credentials that typically come attached to a player generating this volume of attention. Brad Gilbert, after watching her Miami exit against Muchova, was specific about the technical gap. He identified her serve as the priority area. She won only 36% of her first serve points against the Czech player. That number has to improve significantly before the clay swing can produce anything resembling the results her fan base is expecting.
Yeah, so back to your question, I really didn't want to win this way, but this is still a really big moment for me to be able to play on Stadium 1 of Indian Wells and against such a great competitor. I'm really grateful to be here and I'm super happy. Yeah.
Sabalenka won the Linz Open in 2020. The tournament has been on the WTA calendar since 1987, and she is one of the names etched into its history alongside Coco Gauff, Jelena Ostapenko, and Ekaterina Alexandrova. It is her kind of event, indoor controlled conditions, a surface that suits her aggressive baseline game. She has the title, she has the history there. What she does not have in April 2026 is the conversation. Every discussion about the Linz Open in the weeks leading up to the draw has centered on Eala. The player is entering unseeded, the player ranked outside the top 40, the player coming off a 6-0, 6-2 loss in Miami, who openly told Andy Roddick she wants to share a court with the world number 1. The attention has drifted in a direction that has nothing to do with ranking mathematics or recent form. The Australian Open numbers made the imbalance impossible to ignore. Sabalenka arrived in Melbourne as a 2-time former champion and the current world number 1, a player who had won 2 of the 4 Grand Slam titles available in 2024. Her pre-tournament press conference generated 9,000 YouTube views. Eala's press conference, for a player entering her first Australian Open main draw, generated 196,000. Almost twice the views of Novak Djokovic's press conference, more than 6 times the views of eventual champion Carlos Alcaraz. Steve Johnson said it plainly on the Nothing Major podcast. When Sam Querrey asked whether Eala was a bigger draw than Sabalenka and Gauff, Johnson said yes without pausing.
Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now?
Yes.
Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco?
Dude, it's crazy. She's having the same effect that Fonseca was having, like, on the men's side.
John Eisner, also on the panel, added that the Philippines represents one of the largest untapped tennis markets in the world, and that Eala is the first player to unlock it at the international level. Nobody at the table pushed back. Before Austria became the next destination, the pattern had already been established across 3 continents. At the 2026 Australian Open in January, Eala's first-round match against Alicia Parks was assigned to a smaller court. The crowd that showed up did not fit. Large queues formed outside the stadium during the match. Martina Navratilova publicly criticized the scheduling decision, stating that the organizers had made an error by not anticipating the volume of fans Eala would draw. A month later in Dubai, Eala sold out every single one of her matches during a quarter-final run at the Dubai Tennis Championships. Goff, who beat Eala in the Dubai quarterfinals, still addressed the atmosphere directly after the match, noting she had played Dubai for years and never seen the stadium full the way it was for Eala's matches.
I know you were mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it is great to be on a crowded court. I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot. And also, like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it.
The Philippine Women's Open in Manila went even further. Ticketing for the final was already sold out before Eala had officially confirmed her participation in the tournament. The WTA only announced the event in 2025, and within weeks, the demand had already outpaced the venue's capacity. It was the first WTA tournament ever held in the Philippines, and it opened completely oversubscribed. At Indian Wells in March, hundreds of fans packed a practice court to watch Eala train at noon. The players on the courts immediately beside her were Alexander Zverev and Taylor Fritz, a former Indian Wells champion playing on home soil. They attracted a handful of spectators. Eala's practice court was standing room only. BNP Paribas Open executive Philippe Dor told Front Office Sports that the tournament loved every minute of the Eala phenomenon. He said they benefited from it and actively promoted it. That is a tournament. Director describing a player's fan base as a commercial asset. For a player who entered Indian Wells, ranked 31st in the world. The Gcash livestream economy in the Philippines tells the same story from a different angle. Filipino fans who cannot access official WTA broadcasts have built an informal cottage industry around Eala's matches, streaming through phone cameras pointed at screens, collecting small donations via the Gcash mobile wallet from viewers across the Filipino diaspora. During high-profile matches, those donations reach thousands per stream. The entire ecosystem exists because the demand for Eala coverage outpaces whatever formal distribution infrastructure is available.
Eala, the phenomenon. We didn't know, largely, the tennis community a year ago before her run in Miami, and now it's must-see TV and drawing maybe the biggest crowds anyone outside of Alcaraz Center and the like.
She represents the Philippines, which is a country with more than 100 million people, but doesn't have a lot of history in tennis, and she's really leaned into it.
The 2026 Linz Open field is not constructed to make an unseeded player's path comfortable. Defending champion Ekaterina Alexandrova enters as the top seed. Clara Tauson, Lyudmila Samsonova, and Emma Raducanu are also in the field. Jelena Ostapenko, the 2024 Linz champion, adds another layer of genuine clay court pedigree to a 28-player draw. Eala has history against some of these players already. She beat Goff at Indian Wells earlier in 2026. She dispatched Yastremska in the same tournament. Her ability to compete against top-ranked opposition is no longer theoretical. The results exist across multiple surfaces at multiple levels. Clay remains the open question. The ranking drop from Miami will affect her seeding position entirely. Entering as an unseeded player means the draw could place her against a seeded opponent as early as the first round. On clay, in her first Linz Open appearance, having come off a 60-minute loss in Miami that exposed specific technical vulnerabilities, her coaching team now has roughly 2 weeks to address them before April 6th. This is not a comfortable situation on paper. It has not been a comfortable situation on paper at any point during Eala's 2026 season, and she has responded to that discomfort by reaching the round of 16 at both Indian Wells and Miami, beating Goff, Yastremska, Siegemund, and Linette along the way, and accumulating 22 matches across 8 tournaments before the clay season has even started. Eala wants Sabalenka. The head-to-head is at 0. Sabalenka is not in the Linz draw. She is not scheduled to compete in Austria at all. The demand, at least for this specific week in April, is directed at a ghost. Eala is walking into Sabalenka's former tournament, generating the kind of noise that the tournament has never seen before, and the player she has publicly called out is not even there to respond. That is the actual situation, and it makes the Linz Open a peculiar kind of pressure test. Eala is not being measured against Sabalenka's tennis this week. She is being measured against Sabalenka's legacy at this venue, against the standard of attention that has followed her since Miami 2025, and against the clay court resume she needs to build before Roland Garros becomes the real conversation in May. Her own words after Miami frame it correctly. She told her fans in Tagalog that the fight continues and that she would see them again in Europe. She told the WTA website that she knows her truth, that the external noise around her rankings or results doesn't change what she knows about herself as a competitor. She has been in this position before, where the expectations of a fan base and the difficulty of the immediate challenge exist on completely different scales, and she has navigated it without losing either her composure or her honesty about where her game actually stands. The demand for Sabalenka is real. The gap between where Eala is right now and where she needs to be to actually make that match happen on a Grand Slam stage is also real. Linz is where the distance between those two realities starts to get measured seriously. Austria in April 2026 is not the final answer. It is the first question of the clay season, and the answer Eala gives on that indoor clay court at the design center Linz will determine exactly how seriously the rest of the tour has to take the demand she made sitting across from Andy Roddick in March. Sabalenka has not publicly responded to Eala's demand. The world number one has not addressed the view gap, the sellout crowds, or the declaration made on Roddick's podcast. That silence is not unusual. Players at the top of the rankings rarely acknowledge challenges from players outside the top 40 directly. But the numbers make the silence loud in a way that no press conference answer could. 9,000 views versus 196,000. A sold-out final before a participation confirmation. A practice court that outdrew a former Indian Wells champion on home soil. An entire economy of informal live streams is built around one player's matches because the formal infrastructure cannot keep up with the demand. Sabalenka is the best tennis player in the world right now. That is not a contested claim. Her results across 2024 and into 2026 make the argument without any assistance. What is being contested, without anyone formally announcing a competition, is the attention, the conversation, the thing that makes a tournament feel like an event rather than a scheduled fixture on a calendar. Eala has taken that from players ranked above her, from players with more Grand Slam titles, from players on their home soil, at venues where she arrived as an outsider. She did it in Dubai, she did it in Melbourne, she did it in Manila before she even confirmed she was going. She is about to do it in a city where Sabalenka's name is on the winner's board. If you want to see exactly how this clay season unfolds, whether Eala can back up the demand with actual results on the red dirt, and whether that Sabalenka match eventually gets made, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week of this clay swing is going to matter, and this channel will not miss a single development.